You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 80. Stay tuned. Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast dedicated to healing your heart and life following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, twice certified life coach with an advanced certification in post-traumatic growth and grief. I'm also a target parent. Using proven concepts based heavily in neuroscience and psychology, I developed my own playbook for reintegrating with life and reframing my role as my daughter's mother, even while living apart. I went from feeling agonized, helpless, and directionless to feeling energized, confident, and most importantly, at peace. Today, I get to help other parents like you to do the same. Stay tuned. Hello, you guys. How are we doing today, my lovely fellow parents? If you're watching, pardon the entire. I do have jeans on and earrings and makeup. I just have a ripped up shirt and a sports bra on because I was working out earlier and frankly, didn't feel like getting dressed with work attire today. So here I am. And I love this shirt too, because it's from Austin City Limits, which I used to love doing, and also South by Southwest. I tell you, I do miss the crap out of Austin. I miss it, like, a lot. In fact, I have to manage my mind around it on a frequent basis because it was my choice to move here, right, to be closer to family. So I have to keep reminding myself of that and reminding myself of all the good things that I do love about being back in Florida too. But I miss the heck out of that town. I mean, I guess it's all over in the news now. Like, there's so many fun things to do there. It used to be, I kind of feel like it was the best kept secret because it doesn't feel like you're in Texas, but it does. Anyway, it's just a rad place. So if you're ever thinking about going to visit or moving there, it is 2 thumbs up, in my opinion. Don't know what you have till it's gone. And now I've got that song stuck in my head, dating myself. Cinderella. Okay, moving along. Today, it's kind of a continuation from last week a little bit. We're going to be talking about, do you self-erase? The habit, I want to call it, to not consider yourself to the point where maybe you don't know who you are, what your purpose is, yada, yada. So last week, I was providing you with those examples. If you listen to last week's episode, which is a long one, I told you it was going to be. Maybe I didn't mention it till the end, but if you haven't listened to that one yet, make sure you get your favorite drink and cozy on up because it's about an hour long. But anyway, one of the examples that I provided in that episode was with me, how the unresolved trauma showed up throughout my childhood, the rest of my childhood and into adulthood, was that I could not see a future for myself. And so because it didn't make sense to me, clearly I wasn't taking steps to invest in my future, right? I think we're all sort of healing all the time throughout our life, and different parts of our childhood will sort of represent themselves in our adult life. Even if you've been to therapy and all the things, I like to think as a way to tidy up the areas that maybe we weren't able to fully get to earlier. So for me, it did show up in the way that I did not understand how to consider my future. But not everybody's like that, obviously. There are other coping strategies that we develop as kids. You may instead have overachieved. Maybe your role in your family was that of the hero, the one that was always wanting to live up to what you thought others were expecting of you. Maybe you were constantly seeking approval. Maybe you were the one that was like the caretaker. There's so many different ways that this can show up. But I will say, I have noticed that most of us have this feeling of not enough. Chances are that developed sometime in earlier childhood. You know, children are so honest when they're little. That's why we love hearing toddlers talk. And even up into first, second grade, kids are so raw and delightful, I think. But earlier generations, meaning like our parents, I don't know, saw it that way. Sometimes kids were an inconvenience. Like what I learned, and maybe y'all too, was that children should be seen and not heard. Children should be good. And for me, look pretty and be polite, be respectful, kind, and giving. Never cause anybody to feel any bad way. Always be accommodating. My mom was big into etiquette and at all costs, smile. What that taught me was my honesty wasn't welcome. What I was feeling, and I don't feel a victim to it now, but I think it might be helpful to just explain. I'm assuming too that many of y'all also received mixed messages as far as who you could be, who you were allowed to be at home, at school, in the family functions, what have you. We start off all candid and innocent and cute and inquisitive, relentless with our thirst for knowledge and desire to communicate with others and feel a part of as children. But somewhere along the way, we get the message from maybe multiple sources that our eagerness, our boisterousness, our excitability, all of these things aren't welcome. That honesty isn't always the best policy in certain occasions, like in certain circumstances, but not all circumstances, even though we're supposed to be honest with our parents about where we're going and what we're doing and who we're with, but they don't tell you we're not allowed to be honest about what's going on in our own head and our own thoughts, our own anger. Maybe in your house, emotions weren't welcome because it made one of your parents feel discomfort. And so we start learning all of these little intricacies, like exceptions to the rules that our parents were so strict with us about, or school, or whoever your role models were, wherever the messages were coming from. There were these inconsistencies. And as a result, you learned, not in so many words, but you learned to hide who you were. And this is actually what's considered self-erasure. I think we all do it like across, like it just really depends on how and why we learn from society. We've got peer pressure and this, what have you, and this isn't socially acceptable, but this is, and blah, blah, blah. But I also do think, like, for me, again, not complaining about my childhood was exactly the way it was supposed to be, I believe. That's how it works for me. But would I want to provide that environment for my child? Had I do it all over again? Absolutely not. I would want home to be the one place that my child, and I truly hope that that's how I mothered my child, right? That home was the one place where we could be everything that we needed to be, this is where you can relax and be authentic. And that's why now I'm going to go into a different subject, because as soon as I said that, I reminded myself of, I believe, what most of us did provide for our children, because we feel so strongly about that. You wanted them, you encouraged them, and your children felt like they could be relaxed and grounded around you, right? As alienated parents, that's one thing that I think we have a lot of things in common, but this is one of those things that we all share, is this desire to be a source of grounding and support for our children. But when we were children, most of us did not get that. Maybe that's why, not sure. But if there's any sort of abuse from your past, and like I said, many, dare I say, most of us had some sort of abuse in our past that caused us to believe that we could not be our true, authentic self, then there was a sort of separation of you, your true you, and who you needed to be in the moment, a dissociation. You realize that maybe you couldn't share what happened with one of your parents because it caused them to be uncomfortable. It caused them to get scared And so they didn't know how to deal with it. I was just talking with one of my clients this morning about this very thing, that our parents, again, I'm generalizing, but that era didn't possess the skills and the language to support us best. We often were left feeling unsure of how to move forward because they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't have the resources. So bit by bit, with each little incident that happens that we learn, maybe for you, this was definitely in my house, I learned from a very young age that expressing displeasure or any negative emotion that I was having, if my mom would have taken it as a direct hit on her, she would have. And so I had to learn how to curtail and curb pretty much everything I said as to not make her fly off the handle. And so it is actually really sad. I mean, I'm okay about it now. Again, not trying to dredge things up for y'all. The great news is that we're all adults now and it's not still happening, right? It happened before. Now we are responsible for ourselves. This is actually the whole point of this episode, is that your story does not have to own you. You can own your story. And that would be the quickest way to freedom, is to learn how to be in control of your entire story and have agency over all that happened, so that nothing can be really triggering. This is not happening anymore. You're an adult. Nobody can abandon you because you are an adult. A lot of us have abandonment issues, and that is all actually still goes back to this self-erasure, feeling the need to put all of our eggs in another basket, not our own. We feel like we need to grasp on that we need somebody else, this codependence that we develop for those around us because of a childhood wound that we haven't yet fully addressed. So we put our identity and our self-worth into somebody else at our own expense. And each time that we do this, we reinforce the need for that. And we also then take a little more away from who we are as our own individual persons, right? People. And if we repeat this over and over and over again, like, day in, day out for a number of years, maybe your entire life, well, of course you don't know who you are today. Of course you don't know what you want to do for dinner, let alone what your purpose is, because you have been investing all of your time and energy into things outside of you. It makes perfect sense. If this is you learned it early on. Whenever the first incident happened, you learn to detach yourself from it, from whatever the characteristic or experience or whatever it was. And then because you know that skill so well, in any vulnerable moment, you're like, nope, stuff it. One more thing we're dissociating from, detaching ourselves from. So then we start to develop, we just turn into chameleons and just start taking on the attributes, traits, likes, dislikes of other people, what we think would be pleasing to other people. Well, Jimmy likes that, so I probably should too, right? The teacher laughed last time Sally said whatever, so maybe if I say something like that, the teacher will laugh at me too. And so then maybe I'll be in their good favor, that kind of thing, And so when we get to relationships age, and when we're picking out our child's parent, or maybe you didn't even do the picking, maybe they picked you, you were the perfect pick for them. You were absolutely 100% there to serve whatever they wanted. You had already done the self-erasing years before. Of course, I'm speculating here. It could be that this happened during your relationship. I definitely, the second guy, I learned to push down a lot of me in that relationship because of an entirely different kind of abuse that I did not experience ever before that, like with my daughter's father. So I learned very quickly to suppress some of the most charismatic parts of me. I just pushed all of that away and became sort of a walking zombie, didn't realize it till after the fact. So a lot of it did happen for me too, as an adult, but it started off, I never would have attracted him and I would never would have accepted him into my life. And same goes for you. If this already hadn't started from a way earlier age, whoever we attract and partner up with is a reflection of how we already feel about our own selves. And so if you're not feeling good about yourself, then of course you're going to attract the same level of person, the same frequency, if you will. And the more that you work on yourself, you hear a lot of people, I've heard people a lot talk about, well, I don't want to get back into a relationship because I'm scared that I'm going to just attract the same thing. And I've been fucked over so much in my life that I just don't want it to happen again. And I get you. I was there for a long time as well. But I also know now today that I could never attract this is not even talking about dating. This could be friendships and what have you. I could never attract the same type of person into my life and welcome them in because I think differently about who I am. I'm an entirely different person. I wouldn't accept that into my life, and I probably wouldn't even be attractive to whatever friend or romantic relationship. On the other side of things, like either of my exes they probably wouldn't even see me in a room today because of the level of self-respect that I have today. I am not willing to self-erase anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? And so the same goes for you. So if you've done this work and become aware of these patterns, the likelihood of you attracting the same kind of person into your life is very low. Sort of how I was talking about last week in high school and the people that did come from quote unquote good upbringings, how we were missing. There was no way I was like, this is so awkward. It's so weird. And so I'd always go back to the bad boys. Now, after you've been through the storm and you're doing the healing, y'all won't connect in the same way that you might have years ago. So if you're ever scared of this, then this is why. But because you learned to dissociate younger and this became a pattern for you, you felt more and more comfortable diverting to others to find out what they wanted for themselves or they wanted for you. Then you learned how to press it away. And then, of course, you've lost the skill, like your subconscious understands pretty early on, oh, okay, we're not supposed to connect with the true who we are. We can just adopt what is external, attune ourselves to our environment. That's why a lot of us are such good people, you know? Like a lot of us know how to work a room, even if introverts, because we've been doing it our whole lives. It's not that you're trying to pull one over on anybody. The only person that you're really pulling one over on in the end is you, It's a coping mechanism. You just may not be fully aware when you're doing it. But if you find that you feel highly uncomfortable when you're by yourself and with your own thoughts, this can show up a couple ways because some people really like to be alone, especially after 2020, but after being alienated for so long, then we learn how to self-isolate. So we're self-isolated, self-erased people and maybe erased from your alienated child. And so we're on this island, it's highly uncomfortable. And that's why many of us pick up habits that aren't healthy. We can't be who we are anywhere. We don't really know who we are or what we want out of life. So things can feel pointless, like there's no meaning. At least with our kids around, we could serve them. We could pour our everything into them. That gave us our identity. But then all of a sudden now our kids are gone and we're like, what the fuck do we do? How are we going to freaking get by? My daughter was my identity. She was how I felt good about who I was and what I was doing each day. When I went to sleep at night, I gauged whether I had a successful day on how well I was able to support my daughter. And one way or another, first and foremost, people ask me who I was. I'm a mom. I'm here to support my daughter. And so when that's taken away and I don't know who I am, it's like, well, fuck, what now? And plus, I'm not worth getting to know anyway because I got in trouble when I exposed who I was, right? So we stay lost for a really long time because we don't know where to go from there. The only thing that we think will make life better is for our children to come home. If they could just return home, then everything could go back to normal. But I will tell you that depending on how long it's been, I don't know if this is fully true. Because once something like this, like the alienation has happened in your life, and you've gone through what you have, this huge upheaval, and like I said, if it's been more than a year or two, you going back to normal isn't an option. Whatever normal was, and was it even normal back then anyway? I mean, maybe yes, it was amazing because your children were there with you, right? And as you know, I would give all this back and go back to that time, knowing everything I know now and not make those same mistakes again. I would do it in a heartbeat. But number one, we don't have that option. And number two, I just don't think that if things were to go back, we go back to court and you were ordered, custody, full custody, and I don't think everything would just settle back into how it was. Not fully, authentically, deep down here. You can't go back after all of that. Now you can develop the relationship with your kid and things can be great there. But also you've already been faced with this adversity. You can't pretend like that didn't happen. This causes all of us, those of us that want the healing anyway. If you're listening to this podcast, you've already started down the path. So now even if you have your kids and whatever, you're still going to be wanting more. You're still going to be wanting to evolve yourself. The ball's already been rolling. Really what I'm saying here is that I believe, this is a Shelbyism here, not only have we maybe been, for me, was I erased from my daughter's life, or that's what they're trying to do. I'm not going to say I was erased from my daughter's life, but that's what they're trying to do. This started way before I ever met my ex-husband. This started for me as a child. The client I was talking with this morning started for her when she was a child, and I'm going to bet for you too. You learned long ago to turn your back on yourself, and you learned that it wasn't going to get you where you needed to go at the time. This was how you coped, and it's a natural. There was nothing wrong with what you did. It's what you needed to do, what you thought you needed to do in order to get by back then. But doing it over and over for yourself, you had already been erasing yourself when you met your spouse or the other parent. You were already willing to be erased because you were doing it on a daily basis with yourself. And so whoever is alienating your kids from you, maybe they didn't detect this on the forefront of their minds. It's usually not that way, but somewhere in them, they knew that, right? I am in no way blaming you for alienation, but I think that we always put ourselves in situations that reflect what our reality is, what we're already thinking. I just basically said that with our partners. Whatever we're putting out there, we're going to get back, the equal amount. And so if we're choosing partners that are abusive and whatever, it's because we already don't think highly of ourselves, right? And the same thing with self-erasing. If you were already willing to deny, ignore, dissociate from your true self back then of course, here we are years and years and years later where somebody is trying to erase you from your child, right? So make an agreement with yourself to lovingly, compassionately, with curiosity, start noticing where this might be showing up for you. Start noticing where you are lowering your standards for somebody else because you think that it might be easier or less uncomfortable or make you be looked more highly upon by somebody else. Maybe you are hoping to get into somebody's good graces. So you ignore what you really want for the better of the situation, of the relationship, of whatever they want. Become acutely aware of the times that you are tempted to place more value on somebody else's desires over your own, right? Something as simple as like, where do you want to go to lunch today? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Well, let's go to that restaurant that you like down the road, right? Notice those little tiny things that you do and just slowly but surely start with just noticing them. You don't have to change them right away. Have compassion for yourself. Just, oh, that's interesting to yourself. You could say it out loud too if you wanted to, depending on the person. But that's interesting that I just did that. I may not know where I want to go, but that's because I'm out of touch with who I am right now. But let's pay more attention to what I really want. Sometimes what I have to do because I am still getting in touch with who I am and what I want. I think for the rest of my life probably will be, but I go through the list of what I don't want and then go to the exact opposite of what those things are and then start to play with it. Then you have to go start doing things, right? And finding out who you are and redefining who you are moving forward. You are not tethered to whatever you defined yourself as before today, really. Anything that was before today, it's gone. What do you want to define yourself as today? How do you want to see yourself in a month, a year, so on? And that can keep changing as you go too, as you learn more. If you just sit quiet with yourself, the answers will come. It's going to take a little while. If it's been a while since you've been in touch with yourself, it is going to take some practice, but you got to start sometime. So start noticing the areas in which you've been deferring to somebody else for your sense of self-worth or sense of direction or even emotions. This happens so often. I mean, I can't tell you how many times per day that I talk with somebody that they're like, they don't appreciate me enough. My mom doesn't appreciate me. My dad doesn't appreciate me. There's a recurring theme for us. We have little patience or tolerance when it comes to everybody else because we feel like we're already working from a deficit. We feel devalued and underappreciated as a parent, right? And so we don't have it coming from that direction anymore. So then we go and we hope that it comes from our, close friends, family members, maybe significant other. We want them to value us. But really, honestly, that is fleeting. That will never be consistent. Will sort of like rise and fall like the tides. What is consistent is when you value you. Every single time I say that to somebody, people are like, yeah, I guess, but what's the point? The point is valuing yourself and knowing from deep within you that you are infinitely worthy and have so much to offer the world. When you have that from your inside, like truly know this, it's okay if they don't value you. You don't need anybody else to do that for you. It's a feeling like no other. Then where you're not so butthurt when the kids aren't in your eyes, not respecting you or not considering you, then it's not a big deal when your significant other or parent isn't giving you the extra attention you want because you value yourself. It's their loss. When you get to that point, it is the most freeing place to be, my friends. I tell you what. And then what's so amazing about that is when you're there, you are actually at the point where you can offer your unconditional love because you're not expecting anything in return from anybody. It's all coming from within. And I tell you, from that source, when you tap into that part of you, and you all can do it, when you stop ignoring and erasing yourself, when you tap into that energy that comes from within you, it flows nonstop, never-ending source of unconditional love that you are able to give out, not only to yourself, but to everybody else. There are no conditions on what you can offer to people. You're doing it with boundaries, right? But you don't need anybody to be anything or fill any role for you. You don't feel at the effect of your relationships. You're not hanging on every word that your mom or your partner or your cousin or your brother said. Do you know what I'm saying? They're just there and they're making your life feel more enriched on top of the fullness that already is you. When you get there, and this is telling you 100% doable, I did it. And I was a person, like I've stressed so much throughout these 80 episodes now, that I bounced off the energies of everybody outside of me. I was like a ping pong ball, like a pinball, just bing, 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 bing. Who do I need to be? How do I need to be? Are you going to laugh? I was constant, I thrived off of that energy. And that's another reason why I always think, like, if you're one that feels like you are constantly looking for the next best thing, this is also why. Because once you get it from the person that you think that that's going to be the end all be all, if I just have that relationship, if I just have that, whatever, you get there and you realize that you're not full and that it needs to be somewhere else. But this is not what I expected it to be. So I have to go find it from somebody else. So you never, of course, can settle because you're actually always looking for that one thing that's going to satiate you, right? That's going to satisfy you. But that one thing has been inside of you all the while. Okay. So when you stop self-erasing and ignoring and denying yourself, and you start becoming aware of where this is showing up for you, this is the first step. Start becoming aware of how you're looking outside of you to feel better, to feel relief, to feel loved, needed, all those things. And now when I say the love needed, just know too that we do need connection, but connection only happens when you're able to share yourself with another person. Maybe up until now, like this was for me, maybe you haven't actually fully connected with many people throughout your life. Like in your mind, this is what connection is, but maybe you've only been acting as how you think you should be acting for that person, for that relationship. So you never actually connected because they don't know who you truly are and what you truly want and how you truly feel, because you don't know who you truly are and what you truly want and how you truly feel. Do you hear me? So when you stop self-erasing or first become aware of the areas where it's showing up for you, then you can start digging deep and finding the answers that are truly yours. And that is when you actually find true connection with somebody. That's when you have the vulnerability and the true feeling of safety and love and acceptance and all of those things. But it has to start with you. You have to come at this with a curiosity for who you truly are and what you truly want without judging yourself, right? Because when you come at it like, gosh, why can't you just be yourself? You're never going to find the answers because your subconscious, like your emotional brain is like, we're not coming out now. Like conditions don't look so good out there. We'll wait until things feel a little bit more welcoming. So be patient with yourself. It's going to take some time if you've been denying yourself for, years and years and years, which many of us have. Okay. So just be patient with yourself. And for right now, if this is something that's new for you, just start noticing all the areas that it's showing up. Okay. Notice when you have automatically deferred to somebody else to make the plans or to decide what you want or whatever it may be. Maybe you have been always searching for somebody's approval, or maybe it was up to you to take care of your family. And so you're just doing because that's what you have to do. And you sort of lost yourself there. So this is when you can take back your power some. Look, all these things, by the way, I'm making these suggestions if you're not happy with where you currently are. If it's working for you, if whatever you're doing is working for you, and this just brought it up because I was like, if you're taking care of your family, if you're happy taking care of your family, like your nuclear family, mom, dad, or whoever, whatever it is that you're doing, if it's working for you, don't change a damn thing. But if you're really wanting to get in touch with yourself and you're not sure of who you are anymore, and you feel like you've constantly been trying to trade up and find the thing that's going to fill you up, this is how you do. You got to give yourself the grace and allow yourself the freedom and hold space for yourself to divulge who you are. So it's going to take a little bit of coaxing to pull you out, right? Look for the areas where you might be unconsciously self-erasing, separating from yourself in order to avoid discomfort or pain is what your brain will probably tell you. You self-protect and deny who you are and what you want in order to appease others. By doing this work, you can stop the cycle that might have been going on for generations and generations in your family. Okay? Okay, guys, that's what I have for you. Y'all have a lovely, lovely week. And also, April 27th is the event that I'm going to be having, Taking Back Your Power in 3 Steps. Okie dokie smoky. Friday Facebook Live. Okay, guys. Have a lovely week. Bye. Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.